Ma'am, we need you to step out of the vehicle. My son is in the back seat. He's 9. Now? She opened the door. Hands up, tears running. Her groceries still in the trunk. 10 minutes later, her car was impounded. Her name was on the news. And the woman who never broke the law was charged with kidnapping her own child. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from. It started in a grocery store parking lot in Montgomery, Alabama. Tasha Green had just finished work, 12 hours straight on her feet at the nursing home. She wore the same scrubs she'd worn the past 3 days. Her name tag read, T. Green, still smudged from disinfectant. She loaded 2 bags of groceries into her trunk while her son, Caleb, waited in the back seat, tapping his tablet screen. They were headed home, until the white woman parked 2 rows over made a call. Yes, I'm looking at a situation that just doesn't feel right, she told 911. A black woman. She seems stressed. There's a kid. He looks uncomfortable. Dispatch didn't question it. Within 6 minutes, 2 police cars rolled in, lights flashing. No sirens. Officer number 1 approached the driver's side. Officer number 2 flanked the rear. Tasha looked up, confused. Ma'am, is this your vehicle? Yes. What's going on? Step out of the car. My son's in the back. Now? She opened the door slowly. Hands raised. No sudden moves. Officer number 2 opened the back door and began speaking to Caleb. Is this your mother? Caleb looked terrified. He nodded. Yes, sir. You sure? Tasha turned. He's 9. He's scared. Ma'am, stay where you are. They called in backup. Ran her plates. Asked for custody documents. Demanded ID. Tasha provided everything. Driver's license. Insurance. Caleb's school ID. Emergency contact forms with her name. It wasn't enough. There's been a report of a possible abduction, ma'am. He's my son. We'll need to verify that. They separated them. Made her sit on the curb. Questioned Caleb inside the patrol car. When she tried to ask what was happening, they told her to be quiet. 28 minutes later, her neighbor arrived, a white woman named Megan, who had watched Caleb grow up. She ran up to the officers. That's her kid. Everyone in our building knows that. They hesitated, but they let her speak to Caleb. He burst into tears. I just want my mom. Eventually, they uncuffed Tasha. No apology. No explanation. They said she was free to go. Her groceries were spoiled. Her car was scratched. Her son was shaking. But that wasn't the end. Because that night, the story hit local news. Woman detained in possible child abduction incident. Investigation ongoing. They used her full name. No context. No corrections. And at 11:42 p.m., she received a knock on her apartment door. 2 detectives. Ms. Green, we need to ask you a few more questions. It's midnight. We're aware. This won't take long. Behind them, Caleb peeked from the hallway. And Tasha knew. They weren't going to stop. Tasha opened the door slowly. The detectives stepped inside without waiting for permission. Both were men. One older, white, with a mustache that curled slightly. The other younger, black, quiet. Ms. Green, we're just here to follow up, said the older one. Mind if we have a seat? It's midnight, she said again, firmer. My son has school. Won't take long. They sat. She remained standing. Why am I being investigated? They glanced at each other. It's standard. When there's a 911 call about a child possibly being at risk, we notify Child Protective Services. Tasha's chest tightened. At risk? The call described distress. Inconsistent behavior. By whom? You mean, Caleb? The older detective didn't respond. The younger one avoided her eyes. We're going to need to ask you a few things about custody, he said. Tasha raised her voice. I've raised him alone since birth. His father hasn't been around since I was 6 months pregnant. There's no court order. No shared custody. Just me. The older detective made a note. We'll need to verify that. Caleb appeared at the hallway entrance, rubbing his eyes. Mom? She turned quickly. Baby, go back to bed. He looked at the men on the couch, frightened. Are they taking you? The older man stood. No one's being taken tonight. Tonight. That word didn't leave her mind. They finally left after 12:30 a.m. But the next morning, a letter was taped to her door. Scheduled CPS home visit. Tuesday, 9 a.m. At work, she was called into the administrator's office. The supervisor's voice was low and overly polite. We've had concerns. About what? We received notice from law enforcement that you're under investigation. For now, we're putting you on temporary unpaid leave until the matter clears. Tasha felt the floor fall out from under her. I did nothing wrong. I'm sorry. It's policy. Back home, Caleb refused to eat. He kept asking the same question. Why are they saying you're not my mom? She couldn't answer. The hardest part wasn't the fear. It was the doubt. The way people spoke slower around her now. The way the school receptionist asked her to wait outside during pickup. The way her bank manager called to confirm your information on file. Everything she had built, all of it, cracked in less than 24 hours. Because someone made a phone call. And no one questioned if the caller was wrong. They only questioned her. At 8:43 a.m. on Tuesday, she stood by the window, staring at the parking lot. Caleb was brushing his teeth, and 2 black SUVs had just pulled up to the curb. 5 people got out. Only one of them carried a clipboard. The rest wore vests. Not CPS. Police. And suddenly, she realized. They weren't coming to ask questions anymore. They were coming to take something. The knock was soft, polite, but behind it stood 5 people ready to destroy her life. Tasha opened the door an inch. A white woman with a bob haircut stepped forward, clipboard in hand. Miss Green? I'm Amanda Riley, CPS. We're here for the welfare check scheduled this morning. Behind her, 2 uniformed officers waited with blank faces. Another man in plain clothes stood further back, tall, arms crossed, watching. Tasha glanced behind her. Caleb peeked around the hallway corner again. Do you have a warrant? She asked. Riley blinked. We don't need one for a welfare check. But we do have the right to enter if there's reasonable suspicion of harm or neglect. There is no harm. No neglect. He's brushed, dressed, and fed. Then you have nothing to hide, right? The pressure was surgical, legal, practiced. Tasha opened the door. They filed in. Caleb was asked to sit in his room. Riley entered the kitchen, taking notes. Expired milk in the fridge, she muttered. Tasha snapped. That's 2 days expired. And there's a new carton right behind it. Riley didn't respond. Just scribbled something. The officer checked the medicine cabinet. Opened drawers. Looked under the bed. We're just following protocol, he said. Tasha wanted to scream. Instead, she followed Riley into Caleb's room. He sat on his bed, hands in his lap. The woman crouched beside him, voice soft. Do you feel safe at home, Caleb? He nodded quickly. Does your mom ever leave you alone? No. Does she ever yell? Only when I leave my toys on the stove. Riley chuckled awkwardly, then turned to Tasha. Miss Green, may I speak to him privately? No. That will be noted as non-cooperative. He's 9. Then we'll make it brief. Tasha stepped out. 2 minutes later, the door opened. Riley whispered to the officer. He stepped outside and began a phone call. Tasha turned to Riley. What are you doing? Riley looked down. Based on statements, the original 911 call, and today's conditions. I'm placing your son in temporary protective custody, pending further review. Tasha's knees buckled. No, no, no. The officers returned. One reached for Caleb's hand. You can't do this. He's my child. Ma'am, don't escalate. Caleb began to cry. Mommy, don't touch him. They stepped between them. The plain-clothed man finally spoke. You're interfering with an active investigation. One more word, and you'll be arrested. Tasha backed up. Tears fell, but her hands didn't rise. She watched as they walked him out the door, as her son turned around one last time, and whispered through his sobs. Don't let them keep me, Mommy. The door slammed. Silence filled the apartment. And for the first time, Tasha truly understood. The system doesn't take children. It seizes them. The next 48 hours felt like a dream with no edges. Tasha made calls. To CPS. To the precinct. To the juvenile division. To anyone. Most went unanswered. The ones that picked up gave the same line. Your case is under review. On the 3rd day, she was told she could schedule a family case meeting. Next available slot. 10 business days. I'm his mother, she said, voice cracking. He's never spent a night away from me. The caseworker didn't look up from her monitor. Then we recommend seeking temporary legal counsel if you disagree with the action taken. Tasha stared at her. I don't have money for an attorney. There are low-income resources online. You took my job away. Pause. We're just following standard protocol, Ms. Green. She returned home to silence. The apartment felt colder without Caleb's backpack on the floor or his socks under the couch. She opened his bedroom door. Everything was untouched. The toy he was holding that morning still sat on the bed. She lay down in his spot and stared at the ceiling until sunrise. Day 4, she arrived at the CPS office before it opened. She waited outside in the cold for over an hour until someone finally came. Riley. Clipboard. Coffee. Sunglasses. You again. Tasha stood up. Tell me where he is. I can't do that. He's my son. He's in protective placement. That's all I'm authorized to share. He's not a criminal. He didn't do anything. Riley nodded. And neither did you, according to your claim. But you're under review now. Tasha stepped closer. What did he say? What did my son say that made you take him? Riley glanced at the hallway cameras. He said he didn't like being asked questions, that he wished he could go somewhere quiet. Tasha blinked. That's it. In context of the original report and household conditions, it was enough. You mean milk? You mean the 2-day-old carton? Riley didn't respond, just walked past her. Tasha stood frozen. Her arms shook. Where's the paperwork? I want something in writing. You took my child. Riley turned back, calmly. You have the right to request documentation, Tasha whispered. And do I have the right to get it? Silence. Then Riley walked away. Back at home, her mailbox held 2 envelopes. One from her employer, termination notice. One from the city court, preliminary protective custody order. She held them both, one in each hand. Proof of everything she'd lost. And none of it explained why. Not once had they accused her of harm. Not once had they said Caleb was unsafe. Just suspicion. Whispers. A chain of people too afraid to say, this doesn't feel right. So they followed the checklist. And the checklist took her son. On day 5, Tasha walked 5 blocks to the public library. She didn't have a lawyer, didn't have money, but she had a folder filled with every notice, every printed email, every voicemail transcript. And now she needed internet. The librarian looked her over, tired eyes, wrinkled scrubs, trembling hands, but said nothing, just pointed her to a terminal. Tasha sat down, typed slowly. How to fight CPS removal without lawyer. The search flooded with terms she'd never seen. Dependency court, protective orders, family reunification timeline, reasonable efforts. That one caught her attention. She clicked. A state regulation PDF opened. She scrolled. Read. Stopped. Before removal of a child, CPS must show that all reasonable efforts have been made to avoid separation unless imminent danger exists. She blinked. Read it again. No one had offered help. No home inspection plan. No parenting class referral. No warning letter. Just sudden seizure. She kept reading. More statutes. Case examples. One footnote said, lack of immediate risk may constitute wrongful removal. Wrongful. She whispered the word. Her hand shook again, but for a new reason. Not fear. Recognition. She printed the page. Then another. And another. 2 hours later, she had a stack of 40. She returned home, spread them across the kitchen table like armor, and highlighted every line they'd ignored. Day 6, she returned to the CPS office with a manila envelope. The front desk worker barely looked up. Do you have an appointment? I have a right. Ma'am. I'm filing a grievance. She placed the envelope on the counter. Under State Family Code 15.02, subsection B, failure to demonstrate reasonable efforts prior to child removal. The worker blinked. You? Read the code? I did more than read it. She turned to the hallway camera and raised her voice. I memorized it. That night, someone knocked on her door again. Not police. Not CPS. A courier. Legal packet. From county council. She opened it on the floor. Inside, a form marked, hearing scheduled, motion to reassess custody determination. Attached, her own filing. They were forced to respond. Because she spoke their language now. Back in his foster placement, Caleb sat quietly on a cot, holding the drawing he made. It showed his mom, their couch, a yellow sun in the corner. He had written 5 words at the top in red crayon. I want to go home. His social worker glanced at it and smiled. That's nice, sweetie, but never asked what it meant. Tasha stared at her calendar. 9 more days until court. And for the first time since they took him out. She didn't cry that night. She studied. The hearing was still days away, but Tasha was already on the offensive. Every morning started with coffee and case law. Every night ended with printed evidence taped to her kitchen wall. She built it like a timeline. Red markers for errors. Blue for delays. Green for rights violated. By day 8, her apartment looked like a war room. She wasn't fighting for mercy. She was building a case. That morning, she received a letter. Your court-appointed attorney is Gabriel Loomis. She called immediately. The voice that answered was distracted. Yeah? Loomis. I'm Tasha Green. You were assigned to my custody case. Right? CPS thing? Yes. Pause. Look, I've got 6 other hearings this week, but I'll skim your file and meet you day of, okay? She frowned. You won't prepare? It's routine. We usually advise parents to cooperate, complete services, and wait for reunification. Tasha's voice dropped. Did you read my grievance? No? Then don't speak to me like I'm helpless. Click. She hung up. She didn't need a warm body in a suit. She needed fire. Day 9. 3:17 p.m. She walked into the family courthouse, papers in hand, and requested a meeting with the duty judge's clerk. Emergency motion, she said. The clerk squinted. You're not counsel. I'm the mother. And I'm filing pro se. She placed her documents down. Timeline of agency contact. Evidence of immediate removal without imminent danger. Lack of service referrals. Statutory violations highlighted. The clerk blinked. Who helped you prepare this? The law library. And my son's absence. By 5:42 p.m., her phone buzzed. A block number. Ms. Green? This is ADA Kerr. I've just been informed your motion was accepted for early review. Tasha's chest tightened. I thought I had to wait 10 days. You did. But now you don't. That night, her phone rang again. Gabriel Loomis. She let it go to voicemail. Ms. Green, I reviewed your filing. Impressive. I'll be there early. We should coordinate our approach. She didn't call back. Somewhere across town, a CPS supervisor sat alone with Tasha's file. Red stamp. Review accelerated, court ordered. He made a call. This woman's dangerous. Pause. No, not like that. I mean, she understands the process. She's weaponizing procedure. Pause. Then you better find someone to handle her in court. Because she's not walking in there to beg. She's walking in to win. The courtroom was colder than she expected. Family court, room 2B. No jury. No audience. Just 4 people. Tasha. Gabriel Loomis. A county attorney she didn't recognize. And the judge, gray-haired, distracted, already flipping through a stack of files. The bailiff called the case. In re. Caleb Green. Protective custody hearing. Petition for reconsideration filed by biological mother, Ms. Tasha Green. She stood. Her hands weren't shaking. Loomis leaned over. Let me handle the opener. She nodded for now. He cleared his throat. Your Honor, we are seeking immediate reunification based on improper removal. We believe CPS failed to meet the statutory threshold of imminent danger. Furthermore, the judge raised a hand. I've reviewed the motion, but let's hear from county counsel. The CPS attorney stood, blonde, polished, voice practiced. Your Honor, the child was removed due to credible concerns raised by a third-party witness and confirmed by inconsistencies during a welfare check. Tasha interrupted. What inconsistencies? The judge glanced up. Ms. Green, your attorney will have time to respond. But she didn't sit down. I am the response. The judge blinked. Loomis half-smiled. Your Honor, Ms. Green is prepared to speak on her own behalf. May she proceed? The judge nodded, surprised. Tasha stepped forward. When CPS entered my home, I was given no written notice, no opportunity to correct anything, no referral to services. The expired milk they cited was unopened. The drawing they misread was 5 words from a scared child missing his mom. She laid down Exhibit A. I've highlighted the state's own regulation. Reasonable efforts must be made prior to removal unless immediate physical danger is present. She placed Exhibit B. Statement from my supervisor, confirming I was put on unpaid leave due to CPS contact before any court hearing occurred. She placed Exhibit C. A list of 10 prior cases in this county where white families were given in-home plans before removal under nearly identical circumstances. The room shifted. Even the county attorney hesitated. The judge leaned forward now. Ms. Green, you prepared this? Yes, sir. Without counsel? Just a library card and a missing child. Silence. Then the judge looked at the CPS lawyer. Did your office offer any services or attempt an in-home safety plan? The woman's face tightened. The call involved potential emotional distress. That's not what I asked. Pause. No, Your Honor. We proceeded directly to removal. The judge sat back. Noted. Tasha's voice stayed calm. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm asking you to follow your own law. The judge turned to Loomis. Counsel? Anything else? Loomis stood slowly. Only that I've never seen a parent do my job for me and do it better. The judge folded his hands. I'll issue a ruling within 48 hours. Tasha nodded. She didn't smile, because she knew. They hadn't lost yet, but for the first time. They weren't winning either. The ruling didn't come in 48 hours. It came in 72. Faxed to her building's leasing office because she still didn't have a working email. Reunification denied pending full hearing. Concerns regarding emotional instability raised by Child Protective Services remain unresolved. T read it 3 times. Not danger. Not abuse. Not neglect. Emotional instability. She whispered the words out loud, like poison. Later that day, she visited her caseworker's office. Riley wasn't there. A new face greeted her, a young man, clipboard in hand, trying too hard to sound casual. Ms. Green, I'm assigned to manage the ongoing evaluation. Just a few questions today. She crossed her arms. Am I being recorded? This isn't formal testimony. That's not what I asked. He paused. No, but notes will be taken. She sat. He began. Do you ever raise your voice around your child? Yes. When he leaves toys on the stove. Do you experience sadness or fatigue? I work 12-hour shifts and haven't seen my son in 2 weeks. What do you think? Have you ever been treated for anxiety? She squinted. Is that a diagnosis or an excuse? Just gathering background or building a narrative? He didn't reply. Just wrote something down. By week 3, Tasha noticed her neighbors whispering more. A teacher from Caleb's school no longer said hello at the corner store. Even her landlord left a voicemail. We're reviewing your lease renewal based on recent developments. Developments, not violations, not late payments. Just whispers that traveled faster than facts. So she pushed back. She filed a public records request, demanding copies of every report tied to her name. She filed a formal grievance with the state ombudsman against CPS misconduct. She contacted a legal nonprofit for mothers facing wrongful removals. And then she did something harder than all of that. She called her own mother. They hadn't spoken in years. But Tasha's voice didn't shake. I need you to come with me to court next week. Not to speak. Just to sit behind me. I want them to see I come from somewhere. Her mother paused on the line. They already know that. That's why they're scared. On Thursday evening, Loomis called. They're trying to change strategy. How? They're requesting a psychological evaluation. Of Caleb? No. Of you. Tasha exhaled. On what grounds? Subjective. Emotional distress. Unpredictable presentation. They'll argue you're unstable, not dangerous, which is harder to disprove. Tasha nodded slowly. Then we flip it. How? I'll take their evaluation. You sure? Yes. But on record. Meaning? I want it filmed. I want the questions logged. I want a copy of every word said. If they're going to use psychology to steal children, then let's put their science under a microscope. Loomis chuckled low. You've read more law in 3 weeks than I did in my first year. Tasha's voice didn't break. That's because your first year wasn't spent alone. The evaluation took place in a beige room with no windows. 2 women. 1 clipboard. 1 camera. Tasha sat in the center chair. Hands folded. Eyes steady. The questions began simply. How often do you cry? Less than I used to. Do you have dreams of being chased? I'm being chased in real life. They didn't smile. They didn't respond. They just moved on. Do you ever feel like people are watching you? She leaned forward. Ma'am, I filed 14 legal motions in 3 weeks. People are watching me. Silence. Scribble. The session lasted 73 minutes. At the end, she stood up without waiting to be dismissed. Will I receive a copy? The woman with the clipboard nodded. Within 5 business days. Make it 3. That's not policy. Tasha stared. Neither is kidnapping. But here we are. 2 days later, Loomis called again. The judge has advanced the hearing. It's tomorrow. Why? Your filings. And pressure from above. They want it closed. Fine. One more thing. Pause. CPS subpoenaed your employment record. They're trying to suggest your double shifts compromised your parenting. Tasha laughed once, cold, sharp. So working too hard makes me dangerous? That's the argument. She hung up. Didn't answer when he called back. Instead, she walked to her fridge, grabbed the last printed statute she had left, and slid it into her folder. It read, Poverty or employment strain shall not be used as the sole basis for removal. That night, she couldn't sleep. She stood in Caleb's room, tracing the drawings he'd made on the wall with glow-in-the-dark stars. She whispered aloud, Tomorrow, baby. No matter what they say. Her mother slept on the couch. Loomis would meet her there. The court would be full, and every word she spoke would be the truth. Elsewhere, in a quiet CPS office, two administrators sat in silence. A report glowed on the screen. Green, Tasha, psychological review complete. No indicators of instability. Cooperative. Clear boundaries. No elevated risk. One of them swore under their breath. The other sipped coffee. This isn't going our way. Pause. What's the backup? Reframe the narrative. Say she's combative. Non-compliant. You mean assertive? Doesn't matter what we mean. Only what gets written. In the courthouse elevator, Tasha stood between strangers. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't second-guessing. She was ready. At 8:59 a.m., she stepped into room 2B. Loomis waited. So did Riley. So did the same CPS attorney with her practiced voice. The judge entered. Everyone rose. Tasha remained standing as he spoke. Today, we address final custody status in the matter of Caleb Green. Her heart thudded once, twice, then stilled. Because now, it was her turn to finish the story. The judge leaned back in his chair. He had been silent for nearly 5 minutes. No pen clicks. No page turns. Just quiet. Tasha stood at the table beside Loomis. The CPS attorney had finished her closing. Riley was seated behind her, eyes fixed on her lap. The judge finally spoke. I've reviewed the petition, the timeline, the state filings, the psychological evaluation, and the agency's response. He looked directly at Tasha. I find no sufficient evidence of neglect, danger, or emotional harm. The child, Caleb Green, shall be returned to the custody of his mother effective immediately. Tasha didn't move, didn't breathe. The judge continued. All conditions for supervision are lifted. The court recommends no further intervention unless new cause arises. Then he looked at the CPS table. And this court formally requests internal review of Child Protective Services' decision-making process in this matter. He rose. This hearing is closed. The gavel tapped once. Everyone stood. Except Tasha. She sat down. Her legs had given out. Later that afternoon, Caleb stepped into the apartment again for the first time in 32 days. He dropped his backpack at the door. Looked at the couch. The TV. His sketchbook still open on the table. He didn't speak. He just ran into her arms. And stayed there. For minutes. Tasha said nothing. Because she didn't need to. He was home. The case was closed. No media reports corrected the story. Her employer never called to apologize. Her lease was not renewed. She would have to move. But her name was clear. Her son was safe. And every document she filed, she kept. In a red binder. Labeled only with one word. Proof. Months later, she received a letter. From a woman she didn't know. Single mother. Similar case. Same state. It read, I was told to wait. Told to stay quiet. Told to accept the system's plan. But then someone gave me your name. Your motion filings. Your timeline. Your voice. Thank you. Tasha folded the letter and placed it next to the red binder. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. Because now someone else was standing up. And someone else was watching the door. She never became a symbol. Never stood behind a podium. She just got her child back. Without begging. Without breaking. Without backing down. And in a world that expected her silence. That was louder than any speech. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire action and hope.